After 2 years of waiting and waiting and
I dreamt of you. I craved you. I missed you.
It Chapter 2 has finally hit theaters, so today it's time to talk about what was my most anticipated movie of 2019. Before I start though, if you're not already subscribed, then make sure you do so right now for more awesome movie content like this. Without further ado, let's get started. First off, the best thing in this film is the best thing in the first film, and that is the phenomenal casting. Each character is spot on and the acting is amazing. Not necessarily in the heartwarming and relatable way that we had in the first film, because, I'm the same general age range as all of those actors, but more in a fun and exciting way that we didn't really need or get in the first film. The acting overall is really fantastic as much because I could tell that these were the grown-up versions of their teenage self, which a natural evolution from the first film to the second film is something that we needed and we really got in a perfect way. And paired with this is just kind of how fun the film is as a whole. It isn't as scary as the first film, which, we'll discuss later, but, it was fast-paced and exciting, and it was probably the breeziest 3-hour film I've seen this year, which is saying something. All throughout the movie, every scene feels like it needs to happen, and albeit not necessarily as scary as the first time around. That being said, the film did have some genuinely creepy moments. And really the last thing I kind of want to talk about for the good is that it is a faithful yet extremely coherent adaptation of the book. Now, I haven't read the book, but you could tell that Stephen King obviously was okay with this. He had an extended cameo in the middle of the film, so it's not like The Shining where they completely changed the story and he ends up hating it. He obviously really liked it, so for a movie to stay in line with the book so much while also managing to stay coherent and really on a filmmaking quality level, that's just a really hard thing to do. And I think Andy Muschietti, for the most part, really accomplishes doing that. Not necessarily an entirely perfect plot, which we'll discuss in the bad, but I think that he really did a great job of staying faithful, yet doing the best he could with the material. Now, moving on to the bad, we really only have a couple things because this was a great movie and I loved it, so I really don't have much to say here. I will say what I do have to say though, which really only has to do with part of the plot, which specifically the last 30 minutes, because throughout the whole first 2 hours and 15 minutes, it's exciting, it's fast-paced, like I said, in the good, and I don't really have any problems with that part. But then just kind of the character moments that they built up over the last 30 minutes, not all of them, but some of them were just not great. I won't spoil anything because it just came out last night and I'm probably one of the first people in the world to see it. That's not like seeing it as a screening, of course. But not mentioning any of the actual moments, it just got a little crazy and off the rails. This is my problem that I've had with a lot of horror movies this year, but this one feels like it's the most over the top. And while this is probably one of the better third acts of a horror film I've seen this year, it still is extremely crazy, and it kind of took me out of it. Like, not really, because I was trying to love it so much, and I really did, and the last part wasn't really something I had a bone to pick with, but something about, I won't describe it for those that have seen the film, it did look a bit silly at times. It really just felt like a giant monster battle instead of the groundedness of the first film, and that's kind of one of the overall complaints I have here, is that it didn't feel as grounded, or it didn't seem to have a goal in mind as much as the first film. The first film felt like it had something to accomplish, and it did that through its 2 hour and 15 minute runtime. And similar to films like Endgame this year, I think that it was super long, and I think this was better than Endgame, just more coherent and less divisive, I guess. Yeah, one of the bigger overall complaints is that it doesn't really stay as grounded, which was one of the main appeals of the first. And back touching on the character moments, the way they built some of these characters up, a lot of the time I absolutely love it. Like, there's parts in the movie which I won't really go in depth on, where they're just examining each character one by one, kind of like how they did in the first film, and it's a great sequence, and it really takes you back to memory lane, really only 2 years ago. But you're reviewing all these characters, and then you get to a certain character, and it's his secret or whatever, and it really just didn't make sense. It wasn't in the book, and there was really no need for it to be in the movie. And I'm trying not to say anything about it, but it just kind of made me mad because there was no point in it. And whereas in the beginning of the film there was something related to this that didn't really offend me because I knew it was coming, I knew it was in the book, but this was just blatantly out of nowhere that was completely unwarranted and I couldn't really get behind. But other than those few minor complaints, I really love this film. It was great and it stayed faithful to the material and it was almost as good as the first film. I don't know if I like it as much as the first because that film was just extremely special to me. But as a whole, this is a great film and I'm going to give it a 90%. So it kind of falls in line of better than most horror movies I've seen this year or in recent memory really, but not quite as good as the upper echelon, especially the first film. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you want to see more 2019 movie reviews, then make sure to click the link in the description of the button in the outro. Anyway, that's all from me. Thanks so much for watching. Always remember to keep God number one. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.